Okay, here is part 1 of the story. Humanity was left to die. Instead, we forged an empire. It is written in third person, using simple and basic English. This section is about 800 words long and sets the stage for the rest of the story. The sky above New York was gray, not just from clouds, but from dust and ash that never seemed to settle. Buildings stood broken, some leaning like tired giants. The streets were quiet, save for the wind and the distant hum of a generator. Someone had managed to get running again. In what used to be a tech repair shop, now more of a junkyard than anything else, Ethan Cole worked under the glow of a single light bulb. He wasn't much older than 30, but his hands were rough and his face showed years of worry. Once he had designed parts for satellites. Now, he scavenged old electronics for anything that could still work. Outside, people moved slowly through the ruins. Food was scarce. Power was rare. Trust was even rarer. It had been 5 years since the last alien ship left Earth's orbit. They called themselves the Kalan. They had come offering peace, but their war with another race, the Virex, spilled into human space. Earth was caught in the middle. Cities burned. Ships fell from the sky. Millions died. Then came the final message. "We are sorry," the Kalan said. "We cannot protect you. You must survive on your own." And just like that, humanity was left behind. Governments collapsed. Supply chains broke. The internet flickered out. The world went dark. Ethan remembered watching the broadcast on a cracked tablet. He had laughed at first, thinking it a joke. Then he saw the footage. Embassies closing, alien ships leaving, military bases being abandoned. It was real. He wasn't alone in trying to keep something alive. In Chicago, Maya Rivera tried to grow food in the ruins of a research lab. She had studied biology before everything fell apart. Now she was trying to make plants grow without clean soil or stable water. She worked with others, scientists, gardeners, even former teachers, all trying to feed people who had nothing. In Texas, Captain Liam Brooks trained people how to fight. Not for war, not anymore, but for survival. Raiders roamed the land, stealing what little people had. Brooks had fought in one of the last wars before the fall. He knew what happened when order vanished. Now he helped build walls, teach people how to use old weapons and protect those who couldn't protect themselves. But hope was hard to find. People whispered that the aliens would come back, that they'd save us, that they'd fix everything, but time passed and no one returned. Some gave up. Others turned violent. Fear made monsters of many. Yet in small pockets across the world, people still tried. In New York, Ethan found something strange one day while digging through the remains of an old spaceport. Beneath layers of rubble and rust, he uncovered a metal box unlike any he had seen. It wasn't human-made. It pulsed faintly when he touched it. He brought it home, cleaned it as best he could, and started to study it. It took weeks, but he figured out how to open it. Inside was a device, a kind of console. It was damaged, but parts of it still worked. He connected it to a battery and watched as lights blinked to life. Noah Green, a hacker he sometimes traded with, looked over his shoulder. "What the hell is that?" Noah asked. "Not sure," Ethan replied. "But I think it's alien." They worked together trying to understand the machine. They found data, bits and pieces of information stored in formats they barely understood. Maps, diagrams, words in a language neither could read. But there was one image they both recognized. Symbol it looked like a sun with rings around it. They saw it again and again in the files. "This isn't just random," Noah said. "Someone left this here, maybe even before the war." Ethan didn't say anything. He stared at the screen, heart pounding. Could there be more? If this device was here, buried in the ruins of a forgotten building, what else might be hidden? As they worked, news spread through the city. A group of survivors had found a working radio tower. They sent out a signal. No one answered, but the act itself meant something. Someone else was still out there. Hope, fragile and quiet, began to stir. Mayo, in Chicago, heard the rumor through a traveler who passed through her settlement. She didn't believe it at first. But then she thought of the seeds she had planted, of the children learning to read again, of the way people smiled when they shared a meal. Maybe the world wasn't gone. Maybe it was just sleeping. Liam Brooks, too, heard the stories. He didn't smile, but he nodded. If someone was rebuilding, they would need protection. And he was ready. So while most of the world remained broken, a few people, scattered unknown to each other, began to move. Not toward the past, toward the future. Let me know if you want part 2 next, or if you'd like this formatted into a downloadable document, like docs or .pdf. Sure, here is a part 2 bash of the story, continuing from part 1. It's written in third person using simple and basic English, around 800 words long. Ethan stared at the screen, his fingers trembling slightly as he scrolled through more of the data. The alien console was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just a storage device, and it was alive in some way, responding to touch, adjusting its interface like it understood what he was trying to do. Noah sat beside him, eyes wide. "This thing is smart," he whispered. "Yeah," Ethan said, "and I think it wants to show us something." They worked for days, piecing together bits of text, maps, and strange symbols. One word came up again and again: Aru. Maya thought it might be a name, maybe a people or a place. The console also showed images of structures buried beneath oceans, deserts, and even under ice. They looked like cities, but not built by humans. "These could be old," Noah said. "Maybe even ruins." "Or maybe they're waiting," Ethan replied. They weren't the only ones making discoveries. In Chicago, Maya and her team had managed to grow their first full crop of vegetables inside an old greenhouse. It wasn't much, just tomatoes and beans, but it was real food grown without soil, using water and light in ways she had studied before the fall. People gathered to see it. Children touched the leaves like they were magic. "We can feed more people now," Maya told them. "Not just today, but tomorrow too." But outside the city, danger grew. Raiders had started moving south. They traveled, in trucks made from old military vehicles, stealing whatever they could find. They burned farms, took supplies, and left survivors with nothing. Liam Brooks got word of them fast. He had scouts watching the roads. He knew if they didn't act soon, the raiders would reach the settlements. He called a meeting with the leaders of the nearby towns. Most were farmers, engineers, or former soldiers like him. "If we don't stop them now," Liam said, "they'll take everything we've rebuilt." Some argued. Others were scared. But in the end, they agreed. They would set up defenses along the main roads and prepare for a fight. Back in New York, Ethan and Noah made another breakthrough. They found a map, not of Earth but of space. It showed the solar system, but with extra points marked. One was close, just under the Pacific Ocean. "There's something down there," Noah said. "Something big," Ethan agreed. They packed what little they had and decided to leave New York. The journey wouldn't be easy. Roads were broken, and travel was dangerous. But they had to reach Maya and Liam. They needed help to go deeper, into the data. And they needed protection to get where the map pointed. Before they left, Ethan visited an old friend, a woman named Claire who ran a small radio station out of a basement. "You want to send a message?" she asked. "Just a signal," Ethan said. "To anyone still listening." Claire nodded and turned on the transmitter. Static filled the air. Then a voice. "This is Ethan Cole," he said. "I'm in New York. We found something. Something that might change everything. If you can hear this, meet us in Chicago. We need to work together." The signal went out. Weak, but clear. In Texas, Liam heard it while checking one of his radios late at night. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the blinking lights. Then he stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked outside. "Looks like things are about to change," he muttered. Weeks passed. As Ethan and Noah traveled west, others began to move too. People who had stayed hidden, waiting for a reason to hope. In Chicago, Maya prepared for guests. She cleaned the lab and made room for more equipment. She didn't know what Ethan had found, but she trusted him. When they finally arrived, tired and dusty, she greeted them with a smile. "You look like hell," she said. "Feels about right," Ethan laughed. They showed her the console, the map, and the word Aru. Mayo listened carefully. Then she pulled out a notebook and flipped through pages of notes. "I've seen this symbol before," she said. "Not exact, but similar. In some old books about ancient civilizations." "So whoever the Aru were," Noah said, "they might have been here a long time ago." Liam arrived a few days later, bringing news. The raiders were getting closer, but he also brought weapons, tools, and people willing to fight. "You two found something," he said, looking at Ethan and Maya. "I can see it in your eyes." Ethan nodded. "We did, and we need to go find it." Liam crossed his arms. "Then we better start planning." Hope was still fragile, but for the first time since the aliens left, humanity wasn't just surviving. They were starting to build something new, and they weren't going to let anyone destroy it. Let me know if you'd like this formatted into a downloadable document, .docx or PDF, or if you want part 3 next. Here is in part 3 of the story, continuing from part 2. It's written in third person and uses simple, basic English. This section is around 800 words long. The group worked fast. Ethan, Noah, Maya, and Liam gathered people who could help. Engineers, divers, even a few old pilots who had flown before the world fell apart. They studied the map again and again. One location stood out, deep under the Pacific Ocean. It showed a structure unlike any human building, large, ancient, powerful. "If there's something down there," Liam said, "we need to get to it before someone else does." "Someone like who?" Noah asked. Liam didn't answer right away. He looked at the others. "Raiders, warlords, anyone who wants power." They knew he was right. The raiders were getting closer. If they found out what the group was after, they wouldn't stop until they took it, so the team made plans. They needed a ship strong enough to reach the site. They needed air, tools, lights, everything for deep diving. Luckily, Maya had friends in California, former scientists who now lived near an old Navy base. Some still had access to old tech, maybe even a submarine. The journey wasn't easy. Roads were broken. Towns were empty. Sometimes they traveled by foot, sometimes by truck, always watching for danger. In Chicago, a small group stayed behind. They kept the lab running, grew food, watched the skies. One of them was a young man named Jake. He helped Maya before she left. Now he ran things in her place. "We have to keep going," he told the others. "If they find something, we'll need to be ready for it." Back on the road, the group faced storms, broken bridges, and worse, people who wanted what they carried. Liam led the defense. When raiders tried to ambush them near Salt Lake City, he and his men fought back. They didn't kill unless they had to, but they made sure the message was clear. This group was not weak. After days of travel, they reached the coast. The old Navy base was half buried in sand and rust. But inside, they found what they needed, a small sub used for research. It wasn't new, but it still worked. With help from the local team, they fixed it up, added extra lights and oxygen tanks, loaded it with tools and weapons, then they went into the water. It was dark down there. The deeper they went, the more the silence pressed in. Fish swam past. Coral grew on metal ruins. Nature had started to take over. Ethan sat near the front, eyes on the screen. Noah checked the data from the alien console. Maya watched the pressure levels. Liam kept his hand near the emergency hatch. Hours passed. Then, through the murky water, they saw it. A massive structure rested on the ocean floor. Towers rose like bones from a forgotten age. Symbols covered the walls, the same ones from the console. "This is real," Maya whispered. "And it's huge," Noah added. They docked the sub and stepped outside in their dive suits. The water was cold, the silence heavy. They moved carefully, entered through a broken door. Inside, the walls pulsed faintly with light. "Still working?" Noah asked. "Somehow," Ethan said. They explored room after room. Machines lined the halls. Some were dead. Others hummed softly. In the center of the complex, they found it in a core, a glowing sphere floating in midair. Noah pulled out the console. It lit up as they got close. Data flooded in, diagrams, instructions, energy systems, ways to build things humans had only dreamed of. "This isn't just a ruin," Maya said. "It's a gift. Or a test," Liam replied. They copied what they could, stored it in the sub's memory. Then they left, hearts full of hope and fear. When they returned to land, the world hadn't changed much, but they had. They had proof that humanity could do more than survive. They could rebuild. Weeks later, they returned to Chicago. The others greeted them with food and stories. Jake showed them what he had built, a new greenhouse using ideas. From Maya's notes, "You were gone a long time," he said. "But we brought something back," Ethan replied. They shared what they learned, showed the data, explained how they could use the alien tech to make clean power, to purify water, to grow food faster. People listened. For the first time in years, they talked about tomorrow, not just today. News spread. Other groups heard the signal. Survivors from across the country sent word. They wanted to help. A new name started to form, Trimai, the Terran Restoration Initiative. Not a government, not an army, but a promise. Humanity would not fade away. They had been left to die. Instead, they would forge something new, something better, and it all started with a single step into the deep. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a downloadable document or if you want part 4 next. Here is your part 4 line of the story, continuing from part 3. It's written in third person, using our simple and basic English, around 800 words long, with no headings. The days after their return were filled with work. People came from nearby towns to see what Ethan and the others had brought back. Some were scientists, some were engineers. Others were just regular folks who wanted to help. In a large hall made from old shipping containers, they set up tables and screens. Maps were drawn, plans were made. Ideas flew through the air like sparks from a fire. Ethan stood in front of a group and showed them the data they had taken from the ocean floor. He explained how the alien tech worked. Not magic, but science far beyond what humans had known before. "This can give us power," he said. "Clean power, enough for cities. Maybe even more." Mayo sat near him, nodding. She talked about food, how they could use the knowledge to grow more plants, faster and stronger than ever before. Liam paced behind them, arms crossed. He wasn't a scientist or a thinker. He was a man of action. And he knew that while others dreamed, danger still moved in the shadows. Raiders had grown bolder. They attacked more often, took more supplies. Some groups in the West had already fallen. "We need to protect this," Liam finally said. "If we don't, all of this, it won't matter." So, while Maya and her team built greenhouses and water purifiers, Liam trained people to defend them. He taught them how to use old weapons, how to build walls, how to watch the roads. They called themselves the Terran Restoration Initiative, or TRI. It wasn't a government and it wasn't an army. It was something new, a way to bring people together. Months passed. Slowly, things began to change. In Chicago, power came back to parts of the city. Lights blinked on in buildings that had been dark for years. Radios crackled with life. People gathered to talk, to learn, to share. Trucks rolled out with food grown in Maya's labs. They traveled to other settlements bringing seeds, tools, and hope. In Texas, Liam helped build a base. Not a military fort, but a safe place where people could live and work without fear. Scouts rode horses and drove old jeeps, watching for raiders. In California, engineers pulled apart the alien data bit by bit. They found ways to make small fusion cells, tiny power sources that could run machines for years. People started calling it the New Dawn, not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time since the aliens left, humanity was moving forward. Then came the signal. It wasn't from Earth, from a rooftop in Chicago. Noah picked up a faint transmission. He spent hours trying to clean it up. When he finally did, his hands shook. It was a voice. Human. Can you hear me? This is Captain Ellis. If anyone is alive, please respond. Nobody could believe it. Someone else had survived. Not just scattered groups, not just local towns. Real people, organized and sending out a call. Tri sent a reply. They used every bit of power they had to boost the signal. They told the unknown voice who they were, what they had done, what they were building. Days passed with no answer. Just as hope began to fade, the voice came back. Thank God. We read you. We're orbiting above, low on fuel, requesting aid. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Someone was in space. Not aliens. Humans. Years ago, before the fall, a few ships had been launched into orbit. Some were research stations. One was a deep space probe. Nobody had heard from them since the world went dark. Now, one of them had returned. Ethan, Maya, and Liam met quickly. They needed to reach whoever was up there. They needed to know what they knew. Luckily, Tri had been working on something big. In a hidden valley in Colorado, a team had been rebuilding an old launch pad. They had found rocket parts, spare engines, and even a damaged shuttle. With the alien data, they had made progress. Not much, but enough. They called the project Terra 1 Nas. Within weeks, Tri had a plan. They would send a crew up to meet the lost ship. They would bring supplies. They would bring answers. As the shuttle was prepared, people gathered to watch. Children stared at the sky like it held secrets. Old men whispered prayers they hadn't said in years. For the first time since being left behind, humanity looked up, not in fear, but in hope. The countdown began. Engines roared, and with a thunderous sound, the shuttle lifted off. Dust flew. Eyes watched. Hearts beat fast. Humanity was not gone. They were rising, not just from ruins, but to the stars. Here is part 5 of the story, around 1 to 800 words. Written in third person, using the simple and basic English with no headings. The shuttle climbed higher and higher. Flames roared behind it as it cut through the sky. People on the ground watched, eyes wide, hearts full of hope and fear. Inside the cockpit, 2 pilots guided the ship upward. One was a former Air Force officer named Kyle. The other was a young engineer named Anna. They had trained for this moment, for months. They were not just flying into space, they were flying into the unknown. Back on Earth, Ethan stood near the control center. Maya watched from a nearby screen, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Liam paced back and forth, arms crossed. This better work, he muttered. After what felt like forever, the shuttle broke through the clouds. Then came silence. The engines turned off. The ship floated in orbit. Terra 1 to lost vessel, Kyle said over the comms. We read you. Please respond. For a long time, there was only static. Then, a voice. Terra 1. This is Captain Ellis aboard the Voyager. We copy. Approach when ready. The crew moved fast. They docked with the old ship. The Voyager was worn and beaten, its outer shell scarred by years in space. But it still held air and life. When the door opened, they saw faces that hadn't touched Earth in years. Tired, scared, amazed. Captain Ellis stepped forward first. She looked at them like they were ghosts. You're real, she whispered. So are you, Anna replied. In the days that followed, Tri learned everything they could from the Voyager. The crew had been stranded for nearly 10 years. They watched the war between the aliens. They saw the last ships leave. They thought they would die alone in the dark. But now they were home. Not in body yet, but in heart. As the crew shared data and stories, something became clear. Humanity was not forgotten. Aliens had returned. Not the Kalen who had left them behind. Not the Virex who had destroyed so much. These were new ones. They had sent scouts to Earth. Not to attack, but to watch. Ethan sat with Maya late one night, looking at the reports. They know we're back, he said. And they're not sure what to think, Maya added. Liam didn't say much. He just stared at the screen. Then he asked, "How long before they come closer?" "Maybe weeks," Ethan said. "Maybe less." Tri had no fleet, no weapons in space, nothing to stop whatever came next. But they had something else. They had courage. They had each other, and they had built something worth protecting. Weeks passed. On Earth, things kept moving. Greenhouses spread. Power grids grew. Towns connected through radio and messengers. Kids started going to school again. People planted trees. Life came back. But so did danger. Raiders attacked more often. They heard about Tri's success. They wanted it for themselves. Liam led teams to stop them. He didn't fight for revenge, he fought for peace. He taught others how to defend their homes, how to build walls, how to protect food and water. Slowly, Tri grew stronger. Then came the day everyone feared. A scout reported movement near the border. Not raiders, ships in the sky, alien ships, small, fast, silent. They hovered above Chicago for hours. Then a message came, not in English, but in symbols. The same ones found in the Aru ruins. Noah worked fast. He used the alien console to translate. The message said, "We see you. We watch. Do not harm us." Ethan looked at Maya. She looked at Liam. Then Ethan spoke into the transmitter. "We mean no harm. We are rebuilding. We ask only for peace." The ship stayed for one more day. Then they vanished. Everyone waited. Nobody slept. Then, another signal. This time from the Kalan. The same ones who had left humanity behind. They said, "We return. We did not forget. We did not expect you to rise." Ethan clenched his fists. "Well," he said, "tell them we did." Mayo sent the reply. "Humanity is not broken. We have rebuilt. We will not be ruled. We will not be ignored." The message was sent. Silence followed. Then, a final line. "Knew you could. Glad you did." Hope rose again. But Tri knew one thing. Peace had to be earned and defended because the stars were watching and humanity was no longer invisible. Here is part 6 of the story, around 800 words, written in Y third person, using my simple and basic English, with on or no headings. After the alien ships left, life on Earth kept moving. People talked more about what came next. Not just survival, not just farming or power, but the future. In Chicago, Tri built bigger labs. They studied the alien data every day. Noah worked with engineers to understand how the old tech worked. Maya led teams that used the new knowledge to grow more food and clean more water. But not everyone was happy. Some groups stayed far from Tri. They didn't trust aliens. They didn't want to work with anything not made by humans. Others saw Tri as a threat. If one group had power, maybe they would take control. Liam knew this. He traveled to small towns and outposts. He met with leaders, farmers, fighters. He told them the same thing each time. "We're not here to rule. We're here to help. If you want to build something better, we'll stand with you. If not, we'll leave you be." Most listened. Some didn't. But none attacked. Not yet. Meanwhile, in space, things were changing. The Voyager crew helped to try fix up an old satellite network. It wasn't much, but it let people talk across long distances again. For the first time in years, someone in Texas could send a message to Alaska and know someone would get it. Ethan spent most of his time working on the alien console. He found more maps, more tech plans, but also warnings, not from aliens, from the Aru. They had been powerful once. Builders of great cities, makers of ships that flew faster than light. But they were gone now. Why? He couldn't find the answer. Then came the signal. It wasn't from Earth, or the Kalan. This time, it was the Virex. Their voice was harsh, cold, full of warning. "You have taken what is not yours. You are weak. You will return it. People in. Tree read the message in silence. Then voices rose all at once. Some said, run. Hide. Destroy everything alien before the Virex came to take it. Others said, fight. Ethan stood up and spoke over the noise. We didn't ask for this war. We didn't call them back. But we won't give up what we've built. We won't go back to the dark. Mayo nodded. We've come too far. Liam looked at the map on the table. It showed where Tri had bases, where their farms were, where people lived. Then we prepare, he said, and so they did. Trucks rolled with supplies. Walls went up around key areas. Scouts rode into the hills to watch for danger. But Tri didn't just build defenses. They built hope. Kids learned in classrooms again. Radio shows played music and stories. Doctors used alien tech to heal wounds they once could not. For the first time in years, people believed in tomorrow. But the Virex did not wait long. Weeks later, a ship appeared in the sky. Not big, not a warship. Yet. But it landed near the ruins of Los Angeles. Tri sent a team to meet them. Ethan, Maya, Liam, and Noah went. They walked toward the alien craft with hands open. No weapons, only courage. The ship opened. A tall figure stepped out. Its skin was gray, its eyes black. It wore armor that clicked and hummed. It spoke through a translator. You took what was not given. You use what you do not understand. You will stop. Ethan stepped forward. We didn't take anything. We found it. We learned from it. We are not your enemies. The alien stared. You are not strong enough to be our enemy, but you are strong enough to be a problem. Then it turned and walked back into the ship. Before the door closed, it said one last thing. We will return. And then it was gone. Back. In Chicago, Tri held a meeting. Should they keep building? Should they hide? Should they reach out to the Kalen again? Ethan looked around the room. We don't have to choose between hiding and fighting. We can do both. We can build. We can learn. And we can protect what is ours. People nodded. They were not soldiers, but they were ready, because humanity had been left behind. And now, they were standing tall, even if the stars watched with fire in their eyes. They would not fall again. They would rise. Again, and again, until they were not just survivors, but rulers of their own fate. Here is part 7 of the story, around 800 words and written in third person, using the simple and basic English, with the no headings. The Virex did not wait long. Weeks after their first warning, they returned. Not one ship this time, many. They came at night, silent and dark, floating over the land like shadows. They landed near tri-bases in Texas, California, and New York. They sent drones into the sky, cold eyes watching everything. Then came the attack. In Texas, Liam was the first to respond. He had been training people for this moment. Not just fighters, but builders of walls, makers of traps, defenders of homes. Raiders had been a test. This was real war. The Virex struck fast. Their weapons burned through steel and stone. They moved like machines without fear or pain. But Tri had something they did not expect. People who fought not for conquest, but for survival. Liam led his team from the hills. They used old missiles, hidden bombs, and traps built from scrap, metal, and stolen tech. They didn't win every fight, but they made the Virex bleed. In Chicago, Maya and her team worked day and night. They studied alien data, trying to find weaknesses. Noah helped them decode messages, learning how the Virex spoke to each other, how they moved, how they thought. Ethan watched it all unfold. He knew they couldn't win by force alone. They needed help, so he sent a message, not to Earth, to the stars. We are under attack, he said into the transmitter. If you remember us, if you believe we should live, come now. They waited, and then another signal. Not from the Virex, from the Kalen. Their voice came through loud and clear. We hear you. We see your fire. We will come. Hope rose again. But there was no time to rest. The Virex pushed harder. They dropped ships from orbit, landing near Tri's power plants, greenhouses, and radio towers. They wanted to destroy more than people. They wanted to erase what humanity had built. Tri fought back. In California, a young pilot named Zoe took to the skies. She flew an old fighter plane, patched together with parts from 3 different models. She led a small group of pilots who called themselves Sky Wolves. They dove into battle, shooting down enemy drones, protecting the ground teams below. Zoe became a legend, not because she never fell, but because she always got back up. On the ground, Maya led efforts to keep food and water flowing. Even as bombs fell nearby, she stayed in the labs making sure the greenhouses kept running. If we lose hope, she told her team, we lose everything. She sent seeds and tools to other towns, telling them to plant and grow, no matter what, because life had to go on, even in war. Liam traveled between bases, helping where he could. He trained new fighters, built new defenses, taught people how to move quietly, how to hide, how to strike when the enemy least expected it. He lost friends, good ones, but he kept going, because stopping meant losing, and he would rather die than let that happen. Back in Chicago, Ethan and Noah made a breakthrough. They found a way to use Arutech to boost Tri's weapons. They built shields that could stop Virex lasers. They hacked enemy signals, turning drones against their masters. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to slow the enemy down. Then came the day everyone remembered. The Kalen arrived. Ships filled the sky, glowing blue and white. They dropped from orbit like falling stars surrounding the Virex fleet. Battle broke out above the clouds. Lasers lit the night. Explosions cracked like thunder. Ships fell like rain. On the ground, Tri fought harder than ever. Zoe and her Sky Wolves joined the fight, guiding Kalen forces to key targets. Liam led a final push near a ruined city. He and his team stormed a Virex command post, destroying their main control tower. When it fell, the enemy began to retreat. Not all of them, but enough. After days of fighting, the sky cleared. The Virex were gone, or at least weakened. The Kalen stayed for a time. They looked at what Tri had built, at the farms, the schools, the lights in the dark. One of their leaders spoke to Ethan. "You did not ask for this war," she said, "but you fought like warriors. You built like gods. We did not think you could." Ethan looked her in the eye. "We didn't have a choice." She nodded, then choose again, not just to survive, but to lead. As the Kalen ships left, Trixo stood together, tired, broken, but alive. They had been left behind. They had been attacked. But they had not fallen. They had not begged. They had not run. They had stood tall, and they had won. Not all of the war, but the most important part. Because now, the galaxy knew, humanity was not weak. Humanity was here, and we were just getting started. Here is Part 8, the final part of the story, around 800 words, written in third person, using calm, simple, and basic English, with no headings. Years passed. The war with the Virex had changed everything. Tri became something more than just a group trying to survive. It became the heart of a new world, not perfect, but strong. Cities that had been dark for years now had light again. Farms stretched across old highways. Radio towers sent messages from one end of the land to the other. People no longer asked if the stars were watching. They knew they were. After the battle, the Kalen stayed in touch. They shared knowledge. Not weapons, not ships, but ideas. Ways to grow food faster, to clean the air, to build things that would last, and humanity kept rising. In Chicago, Maya helped start new schools. She taught young people how to grow plants in places where nothing had grown before. She showed them how to use what they had, even if it wasn't perfect. "You don't need fancy tools," she told her students. "You just need to try." Ethan traveled between cities, helping set up new tech centers. He worked with Noah and others to understand more of the alien data. They found ways to make clean energy, to send power to places that had none. He still thought about the Aru, who they were, why they left. But he didn't let it stop him from moving forward. Liam trained new leaders. Not just fighters, builders, teachers. People who could keep peace, not just win wars. He built a base near the mountains, not as a fortress, but as a home. A place where people could learn how to protect their towns without fear. Zoe became a pilot for the new space program. Tri had launched small ships before, but now they were building bigger ones. Real ships, made by humans, powered by alien science, yes, but flown by human hands. The first colony ship left for Mars, then another, then one for a moon around Jupiter. Humanity was not just surviving. We were exploring, building, growing. One day, Ethan stood on a hill outside Chicago and looked at the sky. Planes flew overhead. Satellites blinked like stars. Far away, a rocket lifted off, carrying supplies and people to a station orbiting Earth. He smiled. Mayo walked up beside him. "Never thought we'd get this far," she said. "Neither did I," he replied. "But here we are." She looked at the people below. Kids playing, workers building, farmers planting seeds. "We started with nothing," she said. "Just hope. And stubbornness." Ethan laughed. "Yeah," she smiled. "Plenty of that." Liam joined them a few minutes later. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were sharp. "Things are quiet now," he said. "But it won't last forever." Ethan nodded. "Nothing ever does." "But we're ready," Mayo added. "Whatever comes next." They watched the sun go down. Far away on Mars, a message came in. Colony Alpha reports success. Crops growing, power stable, life support working. We are home. It was read aloud in schools, in radio stations, in homes. Across the world, people heard it, and they believed in tomorrow. In the years that followed, humanity spread further. We made peace with some aliens, faced danger from others, but we never went back. We never stopped. Because once, long ago, we were left behind, told we were too weak, too broken, too late. But we proved them wrong. We took what was lost. We learned. We fought. We built. And from ruin, we rose, not as victims, not as slaves, but as emperors of our own fate. We were not born into power. We earned it with blood, with sweat, with fire. And when the stars looked down, when the old races whispered our name, they no longer asked, "Are they still alive?" They asked, "What will they do next?" Because humanity was not just found. We were forged from ash, from dust, from silence. We rose and we ruled. Our empire, our way, forever.